afternoon and welcome to another glorious edition of the Daily Deuce. I'm Gary Graves in Louisville, Kentucky, and in Maryland, my good friend, esteemed colleague, John Webster. How you doing this glorious September day?
Hey, Gary, I'm doing real good, man. Real good. Nice weather today.
Mm-hmm.
Getting ready to have some rainstorms coming up, but good weather though. Good weather.
Yeah. And the best thing about it, no matter the rain, we have NFL football, which we're going to talk a whole lot about today. When the NFL comes back, it's like all is well with the world. Am I right?
You're right. And let me do two things before we start. One, I forgot to say, John Pitt, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty good, man. I know it's week one, but there are a lot of surprises this weekend. Good ones and bad ones. Can't wait to talk about
Yeah.
And the last thing I will say is this: a belated happy birthday to my dear friend, Mr. Gary Grace. Happy 35th birthday, my friend.
That's right. I'm gonna leave it at that. So thank you so much for recognizing youth, man.
Hey, Gary, happy birthday, man. Your package look good. Package look pretty good.
All right. Yeah, try to hang in there because hey, I gotta stay with you two guys. Both of y'all looking all young and stuff, especially John. I mean, if John told you how old he really is, if I told you how old I really am, hopefully you all won't believe it, but I would never believe it with John.
He must be talking about John Pitt. He has to be.
Yeah. Hey, look, the only reason why I know John Webster and I are pretty close is because we have broken bread many times, cleaned out many a buffet, especially one that had good greens, right?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right, let's get right into it. We just finished up week one of the NFL season. Sadly, it ended on a sad note with Aaron Rodgers' injury after 4 snaps, an Achilles tear that's going to keep him out from the year. The Jets won that game, but it just kind of took a little bit of a edge off, for me as a Packer fan and having appreciated Rodgers for what he did in Green Bay. I hate to see any kind of injury like that, especially, I mean, after just 4 snaps, you're talking about a guy that didn't even get a chance to really get fully warmed up. And now there's stories out about, a cut block play that he didn't really want run, that might have contributed to that injury. But be that as it may, it's really sad for the NFL for that kind of thing to happen because he is one of the faces of the league, and for him to go out so soon, now you need somebody to really, really step up and be one of those veteran faces. Somebody who people will continue to tune in, and watch every Sunday. And everybody in New York was hoping for Aaron Rodgers to be that guy to give them a reason to watch the New York Jets.
It's a rough one. My thoughts and prayers with Aaron Rodgers. That's really a sad situation. He had worked very hard in the preseason and off season. This is where he wanted to be. He had his offensive coordinator there, Nathaniel Hackett, brought in a couple receivers, Randall Cobb, Lazard, to go with him. He really, really wanted it to work, and New York Jets, man. And I feel for the Jets organization as well, because not to digress too much, but Gary, if you go back and look at this, they had a good team one year. Chad Pennington got hurt. They had a good team another year. Vinny Testaverde went down with a torn Achilles. It's just so unfortunate that an organization, every time they appear ready to make that big run, something with the quarterback goes sideways. So it's really unfortunate.
Yeah. I hate to use the term snake bit, but I can't think of another word. any other word that applies to what has happened to the New York Jets over the years. And someone who once worked in New York, and a couple of my good friends are Jets fans, and really compared, to the Giants at the time, I thought, yeah, I'd be a big fan of Gang Green, just because they weren't the Giants. But I just wonder, it's like, when is some luck going to come to a franchise like that? It's much like I feel the same way about the Cleveland Browns, that you're talking about, like, one of the stalwart franchises, that made us fans. And it's hard for me to believe that they've never even reached the Super Bowl. The Jets haven't reached it since 1968, 69. It's just, and they've been snake bit by all kinds of bad luck. I mean, speaking of Vinny Testaverde and stuff, I think he spent a little time there as well briefly. Or maybe I'm thinking about Bernie Kosar. Correct? Yeah. Let me correct myself on that. But something like this, I can only hope that the bright side is that Zach Wilson steps up and becomes the quarterback that we kind of expected him to be when he was drafted.
That remains to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
I give him credit on one standpoint. He came through last night. He hung in there. He made a really rough throw, was intercepted by Buffalo Bills, was it Milano? But then he came right back in and worked them and got them into a tie game. And really, if not for the unfortunate bounce of the football, they would have won 16-13 in regulation. But
yeah,
we'll have to see. Zach White, I don't want to wish anything bad on Zach White, but I'll say this. Everybody's game plan yesterday was for Aaron Rodgers. Nobody in their wildest imagination was thinking anything about Zach White going on the field.
Oh, you mean Zach Wilson?
I'm sorry, Zach Wilson. Please forgive me, Zach Wilson.
Oh,
and thank you, Pitt, as well. Zach Wilson. I keep saying Zach White. I'm sorry, Zach Wilson. Nobody in their wildest imagination saw Zach Wilson getting in the game. So my point is, even though there's film on him last year, there's really not film on him this year on how he will work in this new regime. There is now. So this week when they go to play John Pitt's Dallas Cowboys, I don't know if it's going to be a different Zach Wilson or the same one we saw last year. I do know one thing with the Jets. They're going to be in every game because their defense is lights out. They're not going to get blown out. The struggle they're going to have is they're going to have to win a lot of games only scoring 13 and 14 points. I don't, even if Zach Wilson plays well, I don't see them lighting the scoreboard up.
Yeah. And the only thing I can think of in terms of Zach Wilson that could help him is Aaron Rodgers' guidance during training camp, which he said has given him a better feel for what they're trying to do, and really more comfort. I've never felt like he was a comfortable quarterback in that system last year. Well, pretty much through the time in the league. And he said in the short time that Rodgers was there, that he was a big influence on him. That remains to be seen. But I just hope that for the Jets' sake, for Zach Wilson's standpoint, that it's one of those things that opens up opportunities, and now he can come in. He's got a lot on his shoulders, but he also, I think, knows that a lot of teams were geared up, for Wilson, and now he's got to make it his with Aaron Rodgers out for the year. Well, in terms of the other things, and what we really wanted to get into, I guess, were some of the big surprises over the weekend. I think probably, the two biggest surprises that I could really tell was maybe how thoroughly Dallas destroyed the New York Giants after we just, lavished all this love on them, in terms of their preseason prospects in our last show. and the San Francisco 49ers, who basically said, we are the best team in the NFC. I think those were my two biggest surprises.
I would agree with you. I would add one more to it. That would be the Commanders. But we can come
I didn't
back to
get a chance
that.
to see that game. So, yeah, you can elaborate on
Yeah,
that for
I
me.
can tell you a little bit about how I feel about that, but let's go on what you said first. Cowboys and Giants. Uh, rough to watch. Terrible game. Um, the Giants, I'm not, it's only 1 week, but the reasons why I said they will finish last in the NFC East were very much in display on Sunday night. I mean,
No doubt.
Daniel Jones struggled. There's no offense whatsoever. Miscues after miscues after miscues. I just now there still is. You got to wait and see where the Cowboys' offense is firing off at, because a lot of the miscues led to some easy scores for the Cowboys. So you need to see what the offense is going to be like this week.
Yeah.
I still say the Giants are probably fourth best team. Well, fourth place in the NFC East. I don't see that getting any better, honestly. Dallas,
Yeah. After that, I don't see it either. I agree with you.
Dallas, the defense did well, but this week against the New York Jets, we'll see how they do. Before Aaron Rodgers got hurt, I was teasing with you and John Pitt. I was saying last week the Cowboys beat the New York's JV team, and this week they'll play New York's varsity team. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how that goes. In
Yeah.
regards to the 49ers, they're a juggernaut. They are a lightning bolt. They they got it on offense, they got it on defense, they got it on special teams. You got Christian McCaffrey, who can do a myriad of things out of the backfield. You can line him up all over the place, running back. You can line him in the slot, line him up as a wide receiver. And you saw last year in the NFL championship, in the NFC championship, he can even go up behind the center and play quarterback for a minute if you really need him to. So they are. We said it earlier, Gary. San Francisco is one of the best teams in NFC, if not one of the best teams in NFL. After one game, I don't think that's changed. They are still one of the best teams.
Yeah. It's the only thing they haven't done is take it that next step and get to the Super Bowl. You figure, they lose to the Rams 1 year in the playoffs. I think it was Philadelphia beat them last year. The only thing they haven't been able to do is get that home field and get over the hump. I really think this is the year that could happen. I mean, I still have a lot of faith in the Philadelphia Eagles. But I tell you, to go into Pittsburgh, it's not that I'm surprised that they won. I'm surprised by how thorough it was. I mean, that was complete. It was complete on defense. It was complete on offense. In a sense, it was complete on special teams. And again, you don't want to read too much into the first game, but that was a pretty good hint of who the line will likely go behind in the NFC. Now, having said that, do we look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and think they could be the fourth, or the bottom feeding team in the AFC North? Because Kenny Pickett didn't exactly light up the world. He didn't exactly set the world on fire, rather, in that game. And I'm wondering if there's concern there, or is it just 1 week and they played one of the best teams in the NFL?
Combination of things. I think, one, you can't go too off the boat yet with Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin is one of the top 3 or 4 coaches in the NFL. He's never had a losing record in Pittsburgh. He'll get the boat righted. He'll get it turned around in the right direction. Again, San Francisco is a very tough team, and it's proven even more so. You beat Pittsburgh at home, and you dominated them on all aspects of the game. So we'll see.
Yeah. The other teams, well, let's talk about the local teams. Washington beat Arizona. the Ravens won in Lamar's return. He managed the game, I think, well in that game. I saw a few comments about, well, you paid all that money for a quarterback who takes a sack and throws an interception in the first half. And I'm thinking the guy pretty much didn't play for the second half of last year. There was going to be some rust, but I thought what he did otherwise, I thought he managed well. I thought he made himself comfortable in there, and I think that was the only thing that they really, really needed from him in a game like that. And I still feel like, well, in that division, Cleveland, I still think right now, and especially based off of week one, is definitely the class of that division. I think you right now you're looking at probably Cleveland, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Cincinnati. Cincinnati looked bad, and that's the other surprise. I was just how out of sorts Joe Burrow looked against the Browns. That's not surprising given his performances against them. That it's the one team that he really, really struggles against, and they just looked out of sync. That's probably the one game that I watched from beginning to end, and they just never seemed. I never felt like if they had the ball that they could drive downfield and score. And they did not let me down. And I didn't feel like that during preseason, but there was just something about how they played up there in Cleveland that I said they're not going to win this game. And I felt that way early in the second quarter.
I still don't feel nervous about Cincinnati. I still think they're probably the best team in the AFC North. As you said, they struggle against the Cleveland Browns. You look at the last 2 years, they started off very slow. One of those last 2 years, they went to the Super Bowl. The other one, they went to the AFC Championship game. Mm-hmm. I still think they are the team to beat in the AFC North. Cleveland is an absolute positive bad matchup for them for whatever reason. That's their kryptonite. Cleveland gives them fits. As far as Baltimore is concerned, people have to keep in mind that Lamar Jackson has a new offensive coordinator this year in Todd Monken. Lamar Jackson, I think, is going to like this, but also he's being asked to do things he had never done with Greg Roman. So it's going to take some time to get in sync with all this. The person that you said he had a sack and an interception in the first half. Okay, he had a sack, he had an interception in the first half. I remember a guy named Tom Brady having a sack and an interception in the first half. I remember a guy named Johnny Unitas having a sack and an interception. I remember another guy named Joe Montana having the same thing. It happens. It happens. Lamar Jackson is going to continue to get more in sync with Todd Monken, and Todd Monken more in sync with Lamar Jackson. And they're going to be a dangerous team. Lamar Jackson this year actually has a wideout out there that I think he's going to be very comfortable with in Odell Beckham. The biggest thing that Baltimore has to figure out now is the loss of J.K. Dobbins, who I think that was another Achilles injury as well. He's gone for the year. That's something they have to figure out. But Baltimore has always been a team that has been able to say next man up, and I think they'll be able to do this as well. So that's my take on that.
Yeah. So, John, give me your observations of the Commanders on Sunday, and were you troubled by the fact that they had to get into the second half and eventually pull away from Arizona, or was that what you kind of expected?
First, I'll say about Arizona. I think Arizona is going to be better than a lot of people realize this year. Their defense is going to be tough. They play the Giants this week. Somebody's going to be 0-2 after next Sunday. Gary, I'll say this. I have not watched the Washington Commanders or Washington football team or Washington previous Redskins game in its entirety, probably in about close to 10 or 11 years, 10 to 15 years. That's how long I have not watched the Washington franchise. I sat and watched that game from start to finish. And they pulled it out. Sam Howell Did what I thought he was going to do. He's going to be good, but he's going to have his moments when he's going to struggle. He's going to have moments when he throws a ball where he shouldn't throw it. But doggone it, after he made the throw he shouldn't have made, he came right back in there and kept him going. The guy hit him really too high, really late, and he still came back right back in, and he let him down the field to a touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. The thing that really gets me about this Washington franchise, I like what the new ownership is doing. That drove me to want to sit and watch that game. Gary, that bottom bowl was completely full at the beginning of the game, completely full with 85 to 95% Washington fans, not 85, 95% full with Arizona, Philadelphia, or Dallas fans. It was full with Washington fans. They brought some of the old players back. They brought Dexter Manley back. They brought Joe Theismann back. They brought Robert Griffin III back.
Champ Bailey, I heard, was there too.
Huh?
Champ Bailey.
Champ Bailey was there. I forgot Champ Bailey was even on the team. That's how long he's been gone.
Yeah, and it was good. You think of it more with Denver.
Yeah. Give you another story with him. The minority owner, his last name is Rails. I forget what his first name is. They wanted Sonny Jurgensen and Billy Kilmer to be there. Because of health reasons, Billy and Sonny can't fly. What does this guy do? He sends his personal jet down to Florida to pick up Sonny and Billy to make sure they're at the game. Class act. Josh Harris, the majority owner. What is he doing? He's walking up the aisle of the stands by himself, shaking hands with the fans. Different atmosphere. Reminds me of the atmosphere when they were playing at RFK and you had a guy coaching then named Joe Jackson Gibbs. It was just a totally different feel. And Gary, I'll tell you this for me, and you can call me a bandwagon rider, whatever you want to call me. I'm giving serious consideration to bringing back out my Washington gear and rooting for them. Not so much because they won the first game, Gary, hear me clear. It's because of how it seems this ownership is turning the atmosphere and environment around, but with this Washington franchise. That's what may drive me back. I enjoyed the game. It was a tough game. It was a close game. Their defense is going to have to do a lot to keep them in some of these games sometimes. I think they're going to have to make adjustments. I think the enemy will make adjustments because they're going to end up being a better running team than they are a passing team. So you're going to have to use the run to open up your pass. Some of the passing schemes that the enemy probably wants to do, he may not be able to do early because it's going to take too long to come into fruition. The pattern is going to be too long, and the line can't block that long, and somebody's going to get sacked. But that defense, and Chase Young may come back and play this week, and I am still a believer in Chase Young. I think he's going to help this team. I really do. Mm-hmm. So they go to Denver this week. Let's go Commanders. And like I said, Gary, don't be surprised. You may see some Washington gear coming out of here from John Webster.
All right. I look forward to it. I want to break out some of my old gear too, as well. I mean, I've got 3 jerseys hanging up in the closet. Granted, two of them say Redskins, but it doesn't matter. It's like I want to, to be 600 miles away. I want to feel some pride in the team that I grew up rooting for. I became very disenchanted. I'm going to say probably about maybe 15 years ago. He owned that team for something like 24 years. Mm-hmm. But I became disenchanted 15 years ago when it seemed like all he was trying to do was 1, sell a stadium, and 2, sell the tradition. He wasn't selling a good football team. He was not putting a good football team on the field. Out with the old, in with the new, and I just want to feel better about it. All right, John.
I felt really great sitting there watching it, Gary. I mean, I watched it from start to finish.
All right, I'm gonna go back and watch the replay on NFL Network probably in the next day or so. All right, John. Let's talk about at the next level, college football, and Deion's in the news again. Well, I'll say Deion's Colorado Buffaloes are in the news again because they took care of business against Nebraska. That's one. It shouldn't have surprised anybody because Nebraska is not what they used to be. The question was rather, it was Colorado what were they gonna do for an encore? I'm not surprised that they won, but they might have showed me a little bit more against Nebraska, even than against TCU and going down there and winning. They just, they basically showed that was no fluke.
Coach Prime, Deion Sanders. I'll put it to you in a nutshell, Gary. They were 1-11 last year.
Mm-hmm.
They equaled their win total against TCU. They doubled their win total against Nebraska. And they're in the top 25 now. I think they're going to be something to be dealt with. I said beginning of the season, I think 8 wins, 9 wins, and I still feel the same way, 8 or 9. But even with 8 or 9 wins, they need to name a building after Deion Sanders there, as bad as that football program has been over the last few years. He's turned around the whole situation there. He's turned around the feelings of it. He's turned around the support of it. He's turned around the belief that you have in the players. He's got the players coming in now. He's got, like, I don't know, 90% new players this year through the transfer portal. I think he maybe only kept 3 or 4 kids from the team last year.
Yeah.
But, everybody talks about he got transfers, he did this and that. Okay, he got the transfers, but you still have to put a team together with the transfers. You're getting kids from all over the place. That's a man that knows how to put a program together, knows how to run a business, knows how to coach. He's doing an excellent job. Excellent job. This week they got Colorado State, and he understands the business of it as well, too. He understands about the selling of the tickets and everything. When's the last time you seen Boulder, Colorado sold out? And
not since the Bill McCartney days, and not since their title days in the 80s. That's that gives you some perspective about how far they fell, and now what Deion is doing to try to bring them back up.
He's doing an unbelievable job.
Yeah.
They even ran the Buffalo on the field. I ain't seen a Buffalo. Buffalo probably been lost in Boulder Mountain somewhere, but it's just a great thing that he is doing with Colorado. The Fox game day crew has been there the last 2 weeks. I think that they were at TCU the first week. They were at Boulder last week. They're playing Colorado State this coming Saturday, which is their state rival. I can't remember. I think it's ESPN College Game Day is going to be there this time. He's the best show in town. Does it sound familiar, Gary? Does it sound like what was going on at Jackson State?
Oh, without a doubt.
Call it what you want. You can hate on him all you want. But at the end of the day, this man wins. This man helps educate and develop young men on the football field, in the classroom, and in life.
With Deion and what he's doing, okay, first of all, I know he's playing kind of like nobody believed in us, and us against the world card, and that's a great motivating factor for that team, especially with all of those transfers. Having said that, not for a minute have I ever thought that Deion didn't believe that team was going to be good, because he got his own players in there. And by getting some of his own players, that made it easier for him to impart his culture, his experience, his football acumen, for lack of a better word. And again, I always think when coaches come in and change things around, talent is one thing. Deion has that, but you've really got to change the culture in here and in here. And I'll just look at I like to point out what Mark Stoops did here in Kentucky, that they were the dregs of the SEC East. whether they challenge in a division this year really doesn't matter, but they're at a point now where they believe they can win some games, some really tough games, which is something they couldn't have said 10 years ago when he first got here. And changing the culture, especially changing the emotional culture, mental culture of a team is really, really important, because they have to believe they can win those games. They have to believe that when they get down, that it's a full game, that there's always time to make a difference. In this case, they're basically setting the agenda. And again, I think that's probably the biggest impact Deion has made, that they are the aggressors. They don't react, they're proactive. They're assertive. Nobody expected that from them, and that's what I think Deion's biggest thing. And sooner or later we're going to see how much talent they have. I think they've just bought in so well, and he is, well, one hell of a cheerleader. I mean, he's a guy that you see him up in guys' faces, not so much criticizing, but just saying, "Look, I know you can do this. I know you can do it." I mean, he'll be nose to nose and say, "You can do this. Now go out and prove it." And don't and really bump what everybody else says.
This team is going to be very good. It's going to continue to surprise people. But Gary, next year's team, I think, is going to be even better, because the one area that I think he wants to get more comfortable with and get more depth with is his offensive and defensive lines. His skill positions, his son is one of the best quarterbacks in the NCAA right now. I mean, Travis Hunter is a great player, can play both ways. I think he wants to get more with the interior linemen. I think that's what he's looking at. And I said, 8 or 9. I'm more comfortable saying 9, and I can see maybe even 10. But next year, and I think Hunter has another year to come back. I think Shedeur Sanders may come back for another year. Woo, boy. And you get some more linemen in there. Yeah, they're going to be tough.
The thing about Shedeur Sanders, that even though he had his share of hype coming in at Jackson State, that what he's done in 2 games in Boulder has really ratcheted up the hype on him to where he's now being mentioned as a Heisman contender, a possible Heisman contender, which says something. I wouldn't have thought that at any point with him coming there, because I just didn't know what to expect in general from Colorado. But his command of the offense, his own, his arm, his smarts in terms of like check downs and really just being able to read defenses is very, very impressive. And in fact, besides the Heisman hype that he's generated in week 2, there's also talk about him possibly being a top prospect, a top NFL prospect in the draft, which is something nobody could have really predicted, even with expectations of him being a very good quarterback under his dad and in his system.
Yeah, but I also remind people, Shedeur Sanders was a top 10 or 15 quarterback coming out of high school. So he's not just coming on the scene. He was already highly thought of. I think one of the things that people try to take from him is he played at Jackson State 2 years, and they want to say the competition wasn't as good. Well, guess what? He's played 2 games in Power 5. He played against last year's NCAA runner-up. He played against Nebraska, which is a Big Ten team. How do you think he's doing right now? He's a legitimate quarterback. He's a legitimate Heisman candidate. And yes, if he comes out, he is one of the top quarterbacks to come out this year. So all in all, congratulations and nothing but love and support to the Colorado Buffaloes and Coach Prime, Coach Deion Sanders. You're doing one heck of a job, man.
Yeah. Well, stories like that are why we love watching sports. And guess what, folks? There are more stories to be generated this weekend. But when we get together next time, we could be talking about baseball, We could obviously we'll be talking about the NFL. We'll obviously be talking about college football. And John, we didn't even get to the fact that Coco Gauff won the U.S. Open over the weekend. So I'm just going to put in a little pitch for her and say congratulations, and we look forward to many more titles.
Congratulations to Coco. It's been great watching you through the U.S. Open and watching you in these other tennis tournaments. You're doing a great job, and I wish you nothing but the best as you go forward. Gary, go ahead and take us home, man.
All right. Folks, tell your friends, tell your family, look, tell your coworkers, because you probably talk about sports with your coworkers more than anybody else. Tell them about us. Tune in, because we have a lot to talk about. We both have opinions. We both have observations. We both have experience. Come on back and see us. Watch all kinds of sports. And John, enjoy it and form your opinion. Come back with a take next week, my man.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching us this week. As Gary said, watch some football, watch some baseball, watch some soccer, watch some WNBA. Watch whatever you can. Watch some sports and come back and see us again real soon. Take care.